The stars looked different from the observation deck of the orbital station New Geneva. Captain Jake Morrison stood with his hands behind his back, watching the strange alien ship approach. It was nothing like human vessels. Where human ships were built for war and speed, this one looked like a floating crystal palace. Soft blue lights danced along its surface, and it moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. "Captain, they're requesting permission to dock," came the voice of Lieutenant Amy Brooks from the communications station. Her voice carried a hint of nervousness that she tried to hide. First contact with aliens was still new to everyone, even after 6 months of peaceful exchanges. "Grant them permission, Lieutenant, and signal Dr. Carter to meet us in Docking Bay 3. Jake straightened his uniform jacket. Today would mark another step forward in human-alien relations. The Galactic Medical Consortium had requested this meeting to study human biology. It seemed harmless enough. The alien ship docked with barely a whisper of sound. Jake had to admire their technology. Human ships would have made enough noise to wake the dead, with grinding metal and hissing airlocks. This was smooth as silk. The airlock door opened with a soft chime, and the aliens stepped through. Jake had seen pictures, but meeting them in person was still startling. Dr. Zephyr led the group, standing nearly 8 feet tall with skin that looked like polished silver crystal. Forearms moved with perfect coordination as he carried various medical devices. His eyes were large and completely black, like looking into deep space. Behind him came 2 other aliens that Jake recognized from the briefing files. Crix looked like a giant praying mantis wearing a lab coat, his compound eyes reflecting the station lights in 1,000 tiny rainbows. The third one, Dr. Vapor, was harder to describe. He seemed to be made of purple gas held together in a roughly humanoid shape, constantly shifting and flowing within some kind of containment field. "Welcome aboard New Geneva," Jake said, stepping forward with his hand extended. Dr. Zephyr looked at the offered hand with curiosity, then carefully extended one of his own 4 arms. The handshake was gentle, almost hesitant. "Thank you, Captain Morrison. We are honored to be here." Dr. Zephyr's voice came through a translator device that made it sound oddly musical. "This exchange will benefit both our species greatly." Dr. Lisa Carter arrived at that moment, slightly out of breath from hurrying across the station. She was the station's chief xenobiologist, a small woman with bright red hair and an eager smile that made everyone feel welcome. "Sorry I'm late, I was finishing up the preparation for the medical bay." Jake made the introductions, and Dr. Carter immediately launched into excited conversation with the alien physicians. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and even the reserved Dr. Zephyr seemed to warm up to her energy. "We have prepared extensive scanning equipment," Crick said, his voice clicking and buzzing despite the translator. "Your species presents many fascinating biological puzzles for us to study." "Puzzles?" Dr. Carter asked, tilting her head curiously. "Doctor?" Vapor's form shifted slightly as he spoke. "Your cardiovascular system is most unusual. A single heart pump, rather than the multiple redundant systems most intelligent species possess. And your neural pathways show curious inefficiencies." Jake felt a slight sting at that comment, but Dr. Carter just laughed. "Well, we humans have always been good at making do with what we have. Evolution doesn't always create the most elegant solutions." The group made their way through the station corridors toward the medical bay. Jake noticed how the aliens observed everything with scientific interest. They stopped frequently to examine ordinary things like door panels and light fixtures, murmuring to each other in their native languages. "Your technology is quite robust," Dr. Zephyr commented, running one of his hands along a wall panel. "Very solid construction, though perhaps somewhat aggressive in design aesthetic." Jake looked at the corridor with fresh eyes. He supposed the military gray walls and functional design might seem harsh compared to the flowing beauty of the alien ship. "We build things to last in harsh conditions," he explained. The medical bay had been expanded for the visit, with alien equipment integrated alongside human medical devices. Nurse Betty Walsh was there waiting for them, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who had volunteered to help with the cultural exchange. Her gentle manner had made her a favorite among the crew. "Everything's ready, doctors," Betty said with a Warm smile. I've prepared the scanning area just as you requested. Several human volunteers had agreed to participate in the medical studies. Sergeant Danny Rodriguez was among them, a tough Marine who seemed completely relaxed despite being surrounded by alien medical equipment. His calm attitude helped put the others at ease. This is fascinating, Dr. Zephyr said as he began his initial scans of Danny. Your muscle density is quite remarkable for such a compact frame. And these chemical traces in your bloodstream, what is this compound? Dr. Carter checked the readings on her tablet. That's probably residual adrenaline from his morning workout. It's a hormone that helps regulate our fight-or-flight response. Fight or flight? Crix leaned closer, his compound, eyes reflecting interest. You mean a fear response? Not exactly fear, Danny said from the scanning table. It's more like getting ready for action. When something dangerous happens, our bodies pump out chemicals to make us stronger and faster. The aliens exchanged glances that somehow conveyed volumes despite their very different features. Dr. Vapor's form shimmered with what might have been excitement. So this adrenaline is produced in stressful situations? That's right, Betty explained, adjusting one of the scanning devices. When humans face danger or intense emotions, our bodies have a whole cascade of chemical responses. Heart rate increases, muscles tense up, awareness becomes sharper. Remarkable, Dr. Zephyr murmured, making notes on a device that looked like flowing liquid metal. Most species have simple fear responses that encourage retreat from danger. This system you describe sounds almost like preparation for combat. Jake shifted uncomfortably. The aliens were making humans sound like some kind of warriors, which wasn't how he liked to think of his species. We're primarily peaceful people, Doctor. These responses evolved to help us survive in dangerous environments, not to make us aggressive. Of course, Captain. We did not mean to imply otherwise. Dr. Zephyr's tone was apologetic. It is simply that most intelligent species we have encountered evolved past such intense physiological responses. They rely more on technology and reasoning to deal with threats. The scanning continued for several hours. The aliens were thorough and professional, taking measurements and samples with equipment that seemed to work by pure magic. They were particularly interested in human neural activity and kept asking questions about emotions. This anger response you mentioned, Crix said during a break in the scanning. Can you describe it more precisely? Danny thought for a moment. It's like when someone threatens something you care about, your whole body gets ready to fight. Not just physically, but mentally too. You think clearer in some ways, focus on what needs to be done. And this happens to all humans? Dr. Vapor asked, his gaseous form swirling with curiosity. Pretty much, Betty said with a gentle laugh. Though some people are better at controlling it than others. It's not always a good thing. Anger can make people do stupid things if they're not careful. Dr. Zephyr made more notes, clearly fascinated by this information. In our preliminary studies of human culture, we noticed references to anger in your literature and entertainment. We assumed it was simply a minor emotional fluctuation, similar to what we observe in other peaceful species. Oh no, Dr. Carter said, shaking her head. Human anger is definitely not minor. It's one of our most powerful emotions. Throughout history, anger at injustice has driven some of our greatest achievements, and anger at threats to our families or communities, well, that can make humans capable of almost anything. The aliens absorbed this information with the intensity of scientists discovering a new natural law. Jake watched them process the concept, noting how they seemed both fascinated and slightly puzzled by the idea that anger could be productive rather than destructive. As the day wound down, Dr. Zephyr gathered his team for a brief consultation in their native languages. The musical tones and clicking sounds filled the medical bay as they compared their findings. This has been most enlightening, Dr. Zephyr finally said to the humans. Your species presents several biological mysteries that we look forward to investigating further. With your permission, we would like to establish a more permanent research arrangement. Jake nodded agreement. We're happy to cooperate, Doctor. Learning about each other is how we build trust between species. As the alien medical team prepared to return to their ship for the night, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they had missed something important in their discussions. The aliens seemed to view humans as interesting but fragile creatures, almost delicate in their biological design. He watched Danny Rodriguez joking with Betty Walsh as they cleaned up the medical equipment, both of them moving with the easy confidence of people who had faced real danger and come through it stronger. 3 days had passed since the alien medical team arrived at New Genesis. Dr. Zephyr and his colleagues had settled into a comfortable routine of studying human biology. Each morning, they would gather in the medical bay with their volunteer subjects, taking careful measurements and asking endless questions about human physiology. Sergeant Danny Rodriguez had become their favorite test subject. He was patient with their questions and seemed genuinely interested in helping them understand his species. This morning was no different as he lay on the scanning table while Dr. Zephyr monitored his vital signs. "Your resting heart rate is remarkably stable," Dr. Zephyr observed, his forearms working the scanning equipment with practiced ease. 68 beats per minute. Most species we study show much more variation. Danny chuckled. "Marine training, Doc. We learn to stay calm under pressure." Crix looked up from his datapad, compound eyes glittering with curiosity. "This training you speak of, it teaches emotional control?" "Something like that," Danny replied. "You learn to think clearly even when bad things are happening around you." Dr. Vapor's gaseous form shifted with interest. "And this anger response we discussed yesterday, can it be controlled through training as well?" "To some extent," Danny said carefully. "But when push comes to shove, when someone you care about is in real danger, well, training only goes so far." Captain Jake Morrison entered the medical bay at that moment, his usual calm expression replaced by something much more serious. Lieutenant Amy Brooks was right behind him, her face pale with worry. "Captain," Dr. Carter looked up from her notes. "What's wrong?" Jake's jaw was tight as he spoke. "We just received a distress signal from the colony ship Hope's Dawn. They're under attack by Void Raiders about 4 hours from here." The room went silent. Even the aliens seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. Dr. Zephyr's scanning equipment continued to hum, but his attention was completely focused on the humans. "How many people?" Betty Walsh asked quietly, her gentle voice barely above a whisper. 50,000, Jake replied. "Families mostly. My sister Kate and her kids are on that ship." Dr. Zephyr watched his scanning displays with growing amazement. Danny Rodriguez's heart rate had jumped from 68 beats per minute to over 100 in the space of 30 seconds. But more than that, the chemical composition of his blood was changing rapidly. Stress hormones were flooding his system at levels that should have been dangerous. "The nearest military ship is the Defender, but they're 6 hours out," Lieutenant Brooks reported. "By the time they get there." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what Void Raiders did to civilian ships. They took what they wanted and destroyed the rest. 50,000 people would die unless someone acted fast. Jake turned to his crew. "I need volunteers for a rescue mission. This won't be easy, and we're not a warship. Anyone who wants to stay behind, no judgment." Dr. Zephyr's equipment was now showing readings that defied everything he knew about biology. Danny Rodriguez had sat up on the scanning table, and his entire body was changing. Muscle tension was increasing, neural activity was spiking, and his hormone levels were climbing to what should have been lethal concentrations. "I'm in," Danny said simply. His voice was calm, but there was something different about it now. Something harder. "Me too," Dr. Carter said immediately. "I'm not much of a fighter, but I can help with ship systems." "Count me in as well," Betty Walsh added. Her voice was still gentle, but her eyes held a steel that the aliens had never seen before. One by one, the other crew members volunteered. Chief Engineer Carl Davis, Communications Officer Pete Johnson, and a dozen others. Dr. Zephyr watched in fascination as each human displayed the same physiological transformation. Heart rates soaring, adrenaline levels climbing, muscle tension increasing dramatically. But the most remarkable thing was that none of them seemed distressed by these changes. If anything, they appeared more focused and determined than before. "Dr. Zephyr," Jake addressed the alien physician directly. I need to ask you and your team to stay here. This could get dangerous and I don't want to risk your safety. Of course, Captain. But may I ask? These readings I'm seeing from your crew, are they normal? Jake glanced at the scanning displays and saw the elevated vital signs of his people. Yeah, that's normal. We call it getting ready for business. Dr. Vapor's form shimmered with confusion. But these hormone levels, they should be causing panic, confusion, inability to think clearly. Just the opposite, Danny said as he hopped down from the scanning table. When humans need to fight, really fight, our bodies give us what we need, makes us stronger, faster, more alert. But the cardiac stress alone should be incapacitating, Crix protested, his translator making worried clicking sounds. Betty Walsh smiled at the alien medic, but it wasn't her usual warm expression. This smile was sharp and cold. Doctor, you've been studying humans at peace. You haven't seen what we're like when someone threatens our families. The transformation in the humans was remarkable to observe. Dr. Carter, who had been a cheerful scientist just minutes earlier, was now checking weapon systems with the efficiency of a seasoned warrior. Her movements were quick and precise. Wasted motion eliminated entirely. Chief Engineer Carl Davis was already heading toward the engine room, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by intense focus. I can get us 15% more power from the engines, he called over his shoulder. Maybe 20 if we're lucky. Jake was coordinating with his bridge crew, and Dr. Zephyr was amazed to see how the captain's entire command style had changed. The casual, friendly leader was gone, replaced by someone who spoke in clipped, efficient sentences and seemed to anticipate problems before they arose. Amy, get us a direct course to Hope's Dawn, best possible speed. Carl, I need everything the engines can give us. Pete, send a message to the Defender. Tell them we're moving to intercept. The aliens watched this transformation with growing wonder and concern. In the space of minutes, these supposedly fragile humans had become something entirely different. Their vital signs should have indicated a medical emergency, but instead they were performing complex tasks with enhanced efficiency. This is unprecedented, Dr. Zephyr murmured to his colleagues in their native language. No species we've studied shows this kind of beneficial response to extreme stress. Crix's compound eyes tracked the movement of the humans around the medical bay. Observe how their coordination has improved. They're working together with much greater efficiency than during our previous observations. Dr. Vapor's gaseous form pulsed with excitement. The neural activity patterns are fascinating. They're processing information faster while simultaneously maintaining high emotional intensity. Most species experience one or the other, never both. Danny Rodriguez paused in his preparations to address the alien doctors. You should understand something about humans. We're peaceful most of the time because we choose to be. But when someone threatens innocence, especially children, well, we become something else entirely. What do you become? Dr. Zephyr asked, genuine curiosity overriding his scientific detachment. Danny's expression was serious as he considered the question. We become what we need to be. Whatever it takes to protect the people who can't protect themselves. The ship's intercom crackled to life with Jake's voice. All hands, this is the captain. We're moving to intercept void raiders attacking a civilian vessel. 50,000 innocent people are counting on us. I won't lie to you, we're outgunned and outnumbered. But those people have nowhere else to turn. Dr. Zephyr continued monitoring the crew's vital signs throughout the captain's announcement. The numbers should have been terrifying. Heart rates over 150. Adrenaline levels that would kill most species. Stress hormone concentrations that indicated imminent system failure. Instead, the humans were becoming more capable with each passing minute. Betty Walsh finished loading medical supplies into a portable kit. Her movements were quick and efficient, but there was something else in her manner now. Something protective and fierce that transformed the gentle nurse into someone the aliens barely recognized. Doctor, she said to Dr. Zephyr, you might want to monitor us throughout this mission. I think you're going to see something interesting. What will we see? Crix asked, his translator struggling with the harmonics of confusion in his voice. Betty's smile was gentle again for just a moment. but her eyes remained hard as steel. "You're going to see what happens when humans get angry." The ship shuddered as the engines came to full power, and New Geneva began its race toward Hope's dawn. In the medical bay, alien scanning equipment registered impossible readings from the human crew. Every biological indicator suggested these beings should be in medical crisis, yet they had never been more focused or capable. Dr. Zephyr began recording everything, sensing that they were about to witness something that would change galactic medicine forever. These humans, whom they had classified as fragile and peaceful, were revealing capabilities that defied every assumption about biology and evolution. As the ship accelerated toward its desperate mission, the alien medical team prepared to document the true nature of humanity. They had no idea they were about to observe the most dangerous beings in the galaxy finally showing their true face. The journey to Hope's Dawn took 3 hours and 27 minutes. Dr. Zephyr spent every second of that time monitoring the human crew's vital signs, and what he observed challenged everything he thought he knew about biology. Danny Rodriguez's heart had been beating at over 140 beats per minute for 2 hours straight. His adrenaline levels remained at concentrations that should have caused system failure within minutes. Yet instead of collapsing, the Marine had spent the entire journey checking weapons, reviewing ship schematics, and planning rescue operations with crystal clear focus. "This is medically impossible," Dr. Zephyr muttered to Crix in their native language. "No known species can maintain these stress levels for extended periods." Crix's compound eyes tracked the movement of Chief Engineer Carl Davis as he made final adjustments to the ship's systems. "Observe his motor control. The elevated hormone levels should cause tremors and coordination problems. Instead, his movements are more precise than we recorded during baseline measurements." Dr. Vapor's gaseous form shimmered with scientific excitement. "Captain Morrison's neural activity patterns show simultaneous high-level strategic thinking and intense emotional response. The two should be mutually exclusive." On the bridge, Captain Jake Morrison stood calmly reviewing tactical displays while his sister's family faced death 4 hours away. His vital signs showed extreme stress, but his command decisions were flawless. Dr. Zephyr had never seen anything like it. "Incoming transmission from Hope's Dawn," Lieutenant Amy Brooks announced. Her voice was steady despite readings that indicated her body was in full crisis mode. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the colony ship. Captain Susan Miller appeared, her face streaked with blood from a head wound. Behind her, sparks flew from damaged consoles and the sound of weapons fire echoed in the background. "This is Hope's Dawn to any vessels in range. We're taking heavy damage from 3 Void Raider ships. Our shields are failing and they're preparing to board. We have 50,000 civilians on board, including 8,000 children." Jake's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Dr. Zephyr watched his readings spike even higher, but the captain's voice remained perfectly controlled. "Hope's Dawn. This is Captain Morrison of New Geneva. We're 20 minutes out. Hold on." "New Geneva?" Captain Miller's expression showed confusion. "You're a research station, not a warship." "Today we're whatever we need to be," Jake replied simply. The transmission cut to static as Hope's Dawn took another hit. Dr. Zephyr noticed that every human on the bridge had the same expression now: cold, focused, and absolutely determined. Their biology suggested they should be in panic, but instead they moved with deadly precision. "Battle stations," Jake announced. "All hands prepare for combat operations." Dr. Carter appeared on the bridge, no longer looking like the cheerful scientist the aliens had come to know. She wore combat gear and carried equipment that Dr. Zephyr didn't recognize. Her transformation was perhaps the most startling of all. The gentle researcher had become something sharp and dangerous. "Weapons are online, Captain," she reported with professional efficiency. "I've also prepared boarding equipment and medical supplies for civilian evacuation." "Boarding equipment?" Dr. Vapor asked, his form pulsing with confusion. Dr. Carter turned to the alien, and her smile was nothing like the warm expression they had seen before. "We're going to board the pirate ships and stop them, but surely negotiation would be preferable. Most conflicts can be resolved through diplomatic means." "Danny." Rodriguez looked up from his weapons check. "Doctor, these are void raiders. They don't negotiate. They kill for sport and profit. The only language they understand is force." The aliens exchanged worried glances. This aggressive response seemed completely contrary to the peaceful nature they had observed in humans over the past few days. "Contact in 5 minutes," Amy announced from her station. Jake moved to the center of the bridge, and Dr. Zephyr was amazed to see that the captain's stress readings had actually stabilized at the impossible levels. Somehow his body had adapted to sustain the enhanced state indefinitely. "There," Amy pointed to the main screen. 3 raider ships surrounding Hope's Dawn. The colony ship was massive, designed to carry thousands of families to new worlds. It dwarfed the pirate vessels, but its weapons were minimal. The raiders had positioned themselves to prevent escape, while they systematically destroyed the ship's defenses. "Those are Skull-class attack ships," Carl Davis observed from his engineering station. "Each one has 3 times our firepower." Dr. Zephyr expected this information to increase the humans' stress levels even further. Instead, their vital signs remained steady at the impossible peaks they had maintained for hours. "Then we'll have to be 3 times smarter," Jake said calmly. What happened next defied every assumption the aliens had made about human capabilities. Jake coordinated a complex battle plan that used New Geneva's research equipment as improvised weapons. Dr. Carter rerouted power systems to create electromagnetic pulses that could disable pirate electronics. Carl Davis modified the engines to provide bursts of acceleration that turned their research vessel into a weapon. The first raider ship never knew what hit it. New Geneva appeared to flee, drawing the pirates away from Hope's Dawn, then suddenly reversed course and rammed the enemy vessel at full speed. The impact should have destroyed both ships, but Carl had reinforced their hull with equipment meant for asteroid mining. Dr. Zephyr watched Danny Rodriguez lead a boarding party onto the damaged pirate ship. The Marine's vital signs were still showing impossible levels of stress and adrenaline, yet he moved through the enemy vessel with perfect tactical awareness. His reaction time was actually faster than their baseline measurements, and his strength seemed to have increased dramatically. The aliens observed through security cameras as Danny single-handedly held a corridor against 6 pirates while civilians evacuated behind him. He moved like nothing they had ever seen, fast, precise, and utterly ruthless. The pirates had better weapons and armor, but Danny fought with an intensity that overwhelmed them completely. "How is this possible?" Crix asked, his translator clicking frantically. His cardiac output should have failed an hour ago. On another part of the pirate ship, they watched Dr. Carter coordinating the rescue of trapped civilians. The scientist was carrying wounded people who weighed more than she did, somehow finding strength that her muscle mass couldn't possibly generate. When pirates tried to stop her, she fought them off with medical instruments and tools from her research kit. But the most shocking moment came when the second pirate ship managed to board Hope's Dawn. The aliens watched through the colony ship's internal cameras as void raiders cornered a group of human children in the ship's nursery section. Betty Walsh had been helping evacuate civilians when she heard the children screaming. Dr. Zephyr's instruments went wild as the gentle nurse's vital signs spiked beyond anything they had recorded. Her adrenaline levels jumped to concentrations that should have been instantly fatal. What Betty did next would haunt the aliens' understanding of human nature forever. The nursery contained 47 children between the ages of 3 and 12. The pirates who found them were armed with plasma rifles and combat armor. Betty Walsh was a middle-aged nurse carrying a medical kit. She killed all 6 pirates in under 30 seconds. Dr. Zephyr watched the impossible readings from his instruments as Betty moved with speed and precision that defied human anatomy. She used her medical knowledge to target pressure points and nerve clusters, turning healing tools into weapons. The pirates never had a chance to fire their superior weapons. When it was over, Betty knelt among the terrified children, her voice gentle and soothing as she checked them for injuries. Her vital signs remained at impossible levels, but her hands were steady as she bandaged scrapes and calmed frightened sobs. "It's okay now," she whispered to a little girl who couldn't stop shaking. "The bad people are gone. You're safe." Dr. Vapor's form was pulsing rapidly with scientific excitement. "The physiological transformation is complete. They're operating at enhancement levels we've never observed in any species. The third pirate ship tried to flee when it became clear the battle was lost. Jake Morrison coordinated a pursuit that used gravitational slings and improvised weapons to disable the enemy vessel. The tactical thinking required was beyond anything the aliens had thought humans capable of. Through it all, the crew of New Geneva maintained their impossible vital signs. Hearts beating at rates that should have been fatal, hormone levels that should have caused system shutdown, stress indicators that suggested immediate medical crisis. Yet they performed better than any biological system the aliens had ever studied. When the last pirate ship was disabled and the civilians were safe, Jake finally allowed himself to relax. Dr. Zephyr watched in amazement as the captain's physiology slowly returned to normal levels. The transition took nearly an hour, as if his body was carefully stepping down from an enhanced state. "Casualty report," Jake requested. 17 injuries among our crew, none serious, Dr. Carter reported. The civilians on Hope's Dawn lost 46 people before we arrived, but we saved the rest. 49,954 people saved, Danny added quietly. That's what matters. The emergency medical conference was unlike anything the Galactic Medical Consortium had ever held. Dr. Zephyr stood before a holographic assembly of the galaxy's greatest physicians, xenobiologists, and evolutionary scientists. Representatives from 47 different species watched from their homeworlds as he prepared to present findings that would change galactic medicine forever. "Honored colleagues," Dr. Zephyr began, his forearms gesturing to the data displays behind him. "What I'm about to share will challenge our fundamental understanding of biology, evolution, and the nature of intelligent life itself." The massive conference chamber aboard the consortium's flagship was silent except for the soft hum of translation devices. Dr. Zephyr had spent the past week compiling his team's observations, and the data was staggering. "We initially classified humans as a peaceful, fragile species with inefficient biological systems," he continued. "Our preliminary scans suggested they were among the most delicate, intelligent species we had encountered. We were completely wrong." Crix stepped forward, his compound eyes reflecting the data screens. "During what humans call a rescue operation, we observed physiological transformations that should be impossible. Heart rates sustained at over 140 beats per minute for hours without cardiac failure. Adrenaline concentrations at levels that would kill any known species within minutes." Dr. Vapor's gaseous form shimmered as he projected his own findings. Most remarkably, these extreme stress levels did not impair cognitive function. Instead, human mental processing actually improved. Strategic thinking, reaction times, coordination, and problem-solving abilities all increased beyond baseline measurements. A delegate from the crystalline Altair system pulsed with skeptical energy. "You're suggesting that extreme stress enhances rather than impairs human function? This contradicts all known biology." "The evidence is undeniable," Dr. Zephyr replied, calling up video recordings from the pirate encounter. "Observe Sergeant Rodriguez holding a defensive position against 6 armed opponents while maintaining perfect tactical awareness." The assembled physicians watched in stunned silence as Danny Rodriguez moved through the pirate ship corridors. His movements were impossibly fast and precise, his reaction times superhuman. The video showed him anticipating enemy actions and responding to threats that hadn't yet materialized. His muscle output during this sequence exceeded his baseline measurements by 340%, Crix explained. "The chemical analysis of his blood shows hormone levels that should have caused immediate system failure." A reptilian delegate from the Saurian Empire hissed her confusion through the translator. What evolutionary pressure could produce such a response? Most species develop fear reactions that encourage retreat from danger. Dr. Zephyr had anticipated this question. "We believe humans evolved in an environment where retreat was often impossible. When faced with threats to their young or community, they had to either fight with enhanced capabilities or watch their species die out." The next video segment showed Dr. Carter carrying wounded civilians twice her body weight while coordinating complex rescue operations. Her small frame should have been incapable of such feats, yet she performed them while maintaining scientific precision in her medical treatments. Note that her strength enhancement is accompanied by improved cognitive processing, Dr. Vapor observed. She's simultaneously calculating medical dosages, coordinating logistics, and engaging in combat. Most species can barely handle one complex task under stress. The most shocking footage came last. Betty Walsh in the nursery, moving with deadly efficiency to neutralize 6 armed pirates in 30 seconds. The assembled physicians watched in horrified fascination as the gentle nurse became something that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The transformation was triggered by threats to offspring, Dr. Zephyr explained. Not even her own offspring, but simply young members of her species. This protective response overrode all self-preservation instincts. An aquatic delegate from the oceanic worlds bubbled with disbelief. A single unarmed female defeating 6 armed soldiers? The strength differential should make this impossible. Human anatomy changes during these anger states. Cricks clicked excitedly. Muscle fibers operate beyond normal capacity. Neural pathways accelerate processing speeds, and pain sensitivity decreases dramatically. They become physically superior to their normal baseline. The conference chamber erupted in multilingual discussions as delegates tried to process this information. Dr. Zephyr waited for the translations to catch up before continuing. Perhaps most significantly, this enhanced state can be maintained for extended periods without biological damage. Captain Morrison's crew operated at these impossible levels for over 4 hours, with no adverse effects. Dr. Vapor projected brain scan imagery from the human crew. Their neural activity during combat shows patterns we've never observed. High emotional intensity combined with enhanced logical processing. The two states typically cancel each other out in known species. What triggers this transformation? Asked a gaseous being from the Nebula Confederacy. Threats to innocence, particularly the young, Dr. Zephyr replied. Personal danger produces some enhancement, but threats to others, especially children, trigger the full response. It appears to be an evolutionary adaptation for species survival rather than individual survival. The implications were staggering. An insectoid delegate from the hive worlds clicked nervously. If humans can achieve such enhancement levels, why do they appear peaceful most of the time? This may be their most remarkable trait, Dr. Zephyr explained. They can access these capabilities at will but choose not to. Human society appears built around controlling and channeling these responses constructively. The next dataset showed human vital signs during normal activities. Calm, stable, well within normal parameters for intelligent species. Then it showed the same individuals during the pirate encounter. Readings that suggested they should have died within minutes. The transformation is reversible and controllable, Cricks observed. After the threat ended, all subjects returned to baseline levels gradually. No permanent damage, no psychological trauma from operating at such extreme levels. This suggests humans evolved these capabilities not as a permanent state, but as an emergency response system, Dr. Vapor added. They can become apex predators when necessary, then return to peaceful cooperation when the threat passes. A delegate from the peaceful harmony worlds expressed concern. Such capabilities could make humans extremely dangerous to other species. Dr. Zephyr had expected this reaction. Our observations suggest the opposite. Human enhancement appears triggered specifically by protective instincts. They become dangerous to threats, not to innocents. The video evidence supported this assessment. Throughout the battle, human crew members had risked their own lives repeatedly to protect alien civilians on the colony ship. Their enhanced state made them more protective, not more aggressive toward non-threats. We documented 17 instances where humans exposed themselves to greater danger to ensure civilian safety, Cricks explained. Their combat enhancement includes heightened protective instincts, not random violence. Dr. Vapor's form pulsed with scientific excitement. We may have discovered the first species to weaponize compassion. Their deadliest capabilities emerge from their desire to protect others. The conference chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed this information. The idea of a species that became more dangerous as it became more protective was unprecedented in galactic biology. What are the medical implications? asked a crystalline being from the Silicon Systems. We must completely revise our understanding of stress physiology, Dr. Zephyr replied. Human biology suggests that extreme stress states can be beneficial rather than harmful if properly evolved for. More significantly, Crix added, humans may represent an entirely new classification of intelligent life, not predator or prey, but protector. The assembled physicians began discussing the implications for galactic medicine and xenobiology. If humans could achieve such enhancements naturally, perhaps other species might develop similar capabilities through medical intervention. We recommend immediate reclassification of humans from fragile, peaceful species to dormant apex protectors, Dr. Zephyr concluded. Their apparent fragility is deceptive. When motivated by protective instincts, they may be among the most formidable beings in the galaxy. Dr. Vapor projected the final data analysis. Human enhancement appears limited only by what they're protecting. The greater the threat to innocence, the more extreme their transformation becomes. We observed capabilities that exceeded our instrument's ability to measure, Crix added. Human potential under protective stress may be effectively unlimited. The conference ended with a unanimous vote to conduct further studies of human physiology under various stress conditions, but more importantly, it concluded with a new understanding of what humans truly were beneath their peaceful exterior. As Dr. Zephyr transmitted his final report to medical facilities across the galaxy, he reflected on the implications. Humans weren't just another intelligent species seeking peaceful coexistence. They were guardians, evolved to become whatever was necessary to protect the innocent. The galaxy had just discovered it wasn't alone. It had protectors now, whether it wanted them or not. 6 months after Dr. Zephyr's emergency conference, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council chambers on Harmony Station buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered for an unprecedented session. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the speaker's podium, looking remarkably calm for someone addressing the most powerful beings in known space. Beside him, Dr. Zephyr waited with his team of alien physicians, their research having turned the galactic community upside down. Honored delegates, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. 6 months ago, you learned something about my species that surprised you. Today, I want to help you understand what that knowledge really means. In the audience, delegates shifted nervously. The reptilian Saurian ambassador coiled her tail tightly around her chair. The crystalline Altarian representative dimmed to a worried amber glow. Word of human capabilities had spread quickly through galactic society, and reactions had been mixed. Many of you are afraid, Jake continued. You've seen the medical reports. You know what humans can become when we're protecting others. Some of your governments have suggested that contact with my species should be limited or ended entirely. A delegate from the peaceful Harmony world stood up, his translator making soft, chiming sounds. Captain Morrison, surely you understand our concerns. Your species possesses capabilities that could threaten galactic stability. Jake nodded calmly. I understand your fear, but I think you misunderstand what those capabilities mean. Dr. Carter stepped forward, her red hair catching the chamber's lights. She looked like the same cheerful scientist the aliens had first met, but now everyone knew what she could become when needed. May I share something with the council? The chamber fell silent as Dr. Carter activated a holographic display. Images appeared showing human children playing with young aliens of various species in parks across the galaxy. Human teachers working in alien schools. Human doctors treating patients on dozens of different worlds. These images were taken on 47 different planets over the past 6 months, she explained. Since Dr. Zephyr's report was released, humans have received thousands of requests for help from worlds across the galaxy. The display shifted to show human rescue teams working alongside alien emergency responders. Humans helping to evacuate, civilians from natural disasters, human engineers rebuilding damaged infrastructure on war-torn worlds. You see, Dr. Carter continued, when you understood what humans become to protect others, many of you realized you wanted that protection for your own people. A insectoid delegate from the hive worlds clicked excitedly. The mining colony of Kepler 442b requested human assistance when raiders threatened their facilities. The raiders fled rather than face human defenders. The agricultural world of New Terra asked for human teachers to train their security forces. Added a aquatic being from the ocean systems. Crop theft decreased by 90% within 3 months. Jake smiled slightly. You discovered that human anger isn't random violence. It's precisely directed protection. We only become dangerous to those who threaten innocence. Dr. Zephyr stepped forward, his forearms gesturing to new data displays. 6 months of additional study have confirmed our initial findings. Human enhancement capabilities appear specifically evolved for protective purposes. We have documented 0 cases of humans using these abilities for conquest or personal gain. The medical data was striking. Humans could access their enhanced states at will, but they consistently chose not to unless others needed protection. Their transformation was so specifically triggered by threats to innocence that some researchers suggested it was more like a medical condition than a combat ability. We call it protective metamorphosis, Dr. Vapor explained, his gaseous form shimmering with scientific excitement. Humans can become physically superior beings, but only when motivated by the need to defend others. Crix projected brain scan images showing human neural activity during various situations. Personal threats produce minimal enhancement. Threats to loved ones create moderate responses, but threats to children or helpless beings trigger maximum transformation, regardless of the human's relationship to them. It's not about pack loyalty or tribal protection, Betty Walsh added gently. She had become something of a legend across the galaxy, after footage of her defending the children spread through the networks. It's about protecting innocence itself, the Saurian ambassador hissed thoughtfully. You're suggesting humans evolved to be guardians rather than conquerors? Exactly, Jake replied. Our species survived by developing the ability to become whatever was necessary to protect our communities. But the key word is protect, not attack. The evidence was overwhelming. Human colonies had some of the lowest crime rates in the galaxy. Human space had become a destination for refugees and asylum seekers, because word had spread that humans would die before allowing harm to come to those under their protection. We have received 14,000 requests for human protection services, announced the delegate from the Merchant Guild. Trade routes with human escorts report 0 successful piracy attempts. 17 worlds have requested human teachers for their defense academies, added a representative from the Education Consortium, not to learn human combat techniques but to understand human protective instincts. Dr. Zephyr displayed his latest research findings. The most remarkable discovery is that human enhancement levels scale with the vulnerability of those they're protecting. Threats to adults produce moderate responses. Threats to children produce extreme responses. Threats to disabled or elderly beings produce the highest enhancement levels we've recorded. We documented one case where a human grandmother achieved strength levels that exceeded our measurement capabilities, Crix added excitedly. She was protecting her grandchildren from a structural collapse. The force required to lift the debris should have been impossible for any biological being, the chamber murmured with amazement. Stories like this had become common across human space. Ordinary people performing impossible feats when others needed help. But perhaps most importantly, Dr. Vapor continued, humans can teach these protective instincts to other species. Several alien security forces trained by humans now show enhanced performance when defending civilians. Jake gestured to the viewing gallery where several alien officers sat wearing human-designed protective gear. These officers completed our Guardian Academy. They can't achieve human-level enhancement, but they've learned to channel protective instincts more effectively. A delegate from the war-torn border world stood up urgently. Captain Morrison, my system faces constant raider attacks. Our people live in fear. Would humans help us? Of course, Jake replied without hesitation. Send us the details. We'll have a protection team ready within the week. The simple certainty of his answer sent ripples through the chamber. Here was a species offering to risk their lives for strangers, without asking for payment or territory in return. What do humans want in exchange for this protection? Asked the Merchant Guild representative suspiciously. Betty Walsh smiled her gentle smile. We want to know that innocent people are safe, that children can grow up without fear, that families can live in peace. That's payment enough. Dr. Zephyr had spent months trying to understand human motivation, and he still found it remarkable. Humans appear to derive genuine satisfaction from protecting others. Their reward systems are triggered by successful defense of innocence, not by personal gain. We call it being human, Danny Rodriguez said simply. He had been quietly standing guard near the podium, as natural and unconscious in his protective role as breathing. We protect people because that's what people do. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed this statement. The idea of a species that protected others simply because it was right challenged many assumptions about intelligent life. The Galactic Council hereby establishes the Human Protection Corps, announced the council chairman, an ancient being whose species had mediated galactic disputes for millennia. Humans will be granted authority to respond to threats against civilian populations throughout known space. The vote was unanimous. Every species, even those initially afraid of human capabilities, supported the measure. As the session ended, Jake found himself surrounded by delegates requesting human assistance for their worlds. Dr. Zephyr watched the interactions with continued amazement. These supposedly dangerous beings were eagerly volunteering to risk their lives for strangers. Dr. Zephyr, Jake said as the chamber began to empty. Thank you for your research. You helped the galaxy understand us. I think humans helped the galaxy understand itself, Dr. Zephyr replied thoughtfully. You showed us what we could become if we chose protection over conquest. As delegates filed out to arrange protection details with human representatives, Dr. Zephyr reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humans had been classified as fragile and harmless. Now they were recognized as the galaxy's guardians. But the most remarkable thing wasn't how dangerous humans could become. It was how they chose to use that danger only in service of others. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ability to transform into something terrifying. It was their choice to transform only when others needed protection.